Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Wollman, Director at UTA Fort Worth. We're here in the executive classroom at UTA Fort Worth, and today we're joined with our newest executive director of the Executive MBA program, Joseph Babcock. Thank you, Joseph, for spending some time with us today, being able to let us know a little bit more about yourself and kind of about this program and kind of where it's heading. So I guess we'll kick it off a little bit here with, telling us a little bit more about who you are and give us some background.
Oh, well, thank you. I have recently moved down here to Texas, as you mentioned. I got my MBA earlier in my career in a more traditional way. So when I was younger, and I started my career after that, and was in international business. So I've had the opportunity to visit and do business in over 59 countries around the world. I lived in Germany for 10 years. And I got into executive education in the middle of my career when my alma mater, which is Thunderbird School of Global Management, was looking for an executive MBA director. And I thought that was an interesting thing to do, and so I went back to Thunderbird. So it was a way to give back to my alma mater and do something that was interesting, and I felt at that point in my career it'd be interesting to do. After spending time at Thunderbird, we moved back to upstate New York, which is where we're from, and I took on the Executive MBA program at Cornell University, the program which is called the Americas program, and actually brought it throughout the United States, Canada, and Latin America. So that was what I did prior to this. The opportunity at UTA presented itself, and I thought that was interesting because it was a very different type of university than the two that I had been at before, which were private national universities, where UT Arlington is a it's a state school,
Right.
And it's kind of serves kind of a regional clientele. So I thought it was a different challenge, and that's kind of what brought me to
That's
join
great.
UTA.
59 countries. My gosh. I mean, so did you set out in your career to want to go international, or did it just naturally take you there? I mean, was that something that was of interest?
Yeah, that was something that was always of interest to me. It was funny, my grandmother, when I was young, my grandmother was always into garage sales. And I remember she bought me James Clavell's Shogun, the novel, for 25 cents at a garage sale. And she gave it to me, I think I was 11 or 12. And it's, it's 1,500 pages. So that's pretty daunting for a child at that age. But I remember I took the whole summer to just read that, and I was just kind of fascinated by samurai history for many years after that, and just was global in my outlook. So I also had the opportunity early in my career to do some overseas study trips to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to be now fluent in German.
Wow.
And so it was always something I wanted to do. For me, just doing U.S. based business wasn't my calling.
Yeah.
And so I spent 10 years working in Germany, and then came back to the United States and basically just got on an airplane all the time and was always gone.
I'm just curious now. I mean, seeing a perspective overseas, do you feel like it's influenced at all the way that you kind of manage, or you kind of approach your career now here in the States, as an executive MBA director, or do you find like that's influenced you at all?
I think I probably have a above average comfort level with cross-cultural situations and cross-cultural issues. In fact, I enjoy it a lot. I mean, if I'm just with one type of person, it's kind of not as exciting as having the opportunity to deal with people from all around the world.
Right.
I consider myself blessed to have friends and acquaintances from all over the world as
Right.
well.
Well, I mean, obviously it's unique enough that you've lived in so many different places and your background is quite unique. I've also heard you mention, and I think I read somewhere as well, that you're a Toastmasters champion. Tell us a little bit more about that, or Toastmasters award winning, or
Yeah, so I joined Toastmasters maybe 4 or 5 years ago because one of the things that I really like to do is I like to inhabit the world of ideas with people. So a lot of people that join Toastmasters, which, for people that aren't aware, it's kind of an international public speaking organization. They do it because they want to get better at public speaking. They maybe have fear of speaking in public. They want to do it for their job. I did it because I just wanted to inhabit the world of ideas with other people, to both hear what other people have to say, and also maybe now and then I have a good idea that I'd like to share with other people. And one of the things that Toastmasters also does is it has speech competitions, and it's won the international contest, has results in crowning the world champion of public speaking every year. I am not the world champion of public speaking, but I did make it to the semifinals in 2018, which was a great experience because it starts at the club level with about 35,000 participants, and then it goes down to the final 100, and I was able to make it to that final 100, and that was an experience of a lifetime because all of a sudden you're at an international conference and you're speaking in front of a huge room and a lot of different people, and anyone in that final 100 could be the world champion. It just hasn't been me.
no.
But what I did though is it made me really want to get back there just because of the experience.
Right. So are you still working within Toastmasters? I mean, are you still?
Yeah, during the pandemic though, I mean, it's a different thing because everything's on Zoom.
Right.
So I did the contest last year, and it's a different thing because you're not on stage. So a lot of the stagecraft and kind of the physical attributes of giving public speech like that are different on Zoom than they are
Right.
when you're in a real room on a stage with an audience.
Sure. Now, in a second here, I was going to ask you a little more about the executive MBA itself. But one thing that really impressed me, and I found to be quite unique when we got a chance to know one another a little better upon your arrival to UTA, was your focusing in on the executive MBA program. When a student finishes this program, they earn an MBA. That was one of the things I remember you asking questions about, and how UTA views that. Why was that something that you had kind of addressed when you first arrived here?
The executive MBA degree in the industry, a lot of times people think that the degree is called an executive MBA. And in some places, particularly in Asia, that is oftentimes true. For the United States, for North America, for Europe, it tends to be that the executive MBA results in the MBA degree, the Master's of Business Administration, yet the executive format has a specific design for people at a certain point in their career. So I know at Cornell, where I was before, there were 6 different MBA programs. We used to say 1 degree, 6 different ways to get it. And so I had asked the same at UTA, because there are numerous MBA programs that cater to different needs in the community and different student types. So I remember asking that, is it an executive MBA degree or is it the MBA degree that's earned in an executive format? And then they were able to confirm to me that, yeah, indeed, that is the way it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So, obviously we're very familiar here at UTA Fort Worth with especially 2 of those pathways of the 3, the cohort MBA that we offer, and also, of course, the executive MBA. One of the most common questions that I have noticed even in my role, but I'm sure is when professionals reach out and they are in that exploratory phase, asking the comparison between a traditional MBA program or the cohort MBA or an executive path? Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that comparison?
Sure. So an executive MBA in general caters to the mid-career business professional who maybe forgot to get their MBA when they were younger, and they've been in their career and they've reached a point where they want to take it to the next level and have decided that getting an MBA degree or formal business training is the next step in their career. So that's what the executive MBA caters to. So when the traditional MBA in general, and I'm talking in generalities,
Sure.
but for the traditional MBA student tends to be using that degree primarily to start a career, or they're earlier in their career. They have 2, 3, 4 years of experience and are going back to kind of get that formal business training. The executive MBA clientele are usually people that are mid-career professionals or have significant business experience and are now wanting to take their career to the next level. And so getting their MBA degree is part of that. So on average, I would say the executive MBA program, across all programs, the average age is around 35 to 42, so
Okay.
an average age of about 38 years or so with about 16 years of experience. 8 of those are in a management capacity. So those are the type of people who benefit most from an executive MBA program as compared to someone who's younger and earlier in their career and starting to establish a business career.
Right.
And while the degree is the same, so an executive MBA, the curriculum covers all of those same fundamentals of a business degree that you'll have in the other degree programs. You'll get your accounting, your finance, your marketing, your leadership. You'll get all of those things. But because the students tend to have a lot more practical experience, you can go from the basic levels to more advanced levels relatively quickly in the program. Another thing is that an executive MBA student, because of their experience, they bring a lot of experience into the classroom. And so the students learn as much from each other as they learn from us, from the faculty. And the levels of conversation are usually very high.
So, that actually makes me think right now when you had mentioned, the student and the curriculum itself and the way that it must evolve, but at the same time include these fundamental concepts, for business. You came over here in this new role. I think starting any new leadership role at any organization is a challenge in itself. You came over during a global pandemic,
Right.
And so, can you speak on what's that transition been like so far? And what have you noticed? Have you had a chance to meet with the students? Have you had an opportunity to kind of meet faculty? What's the delivery been so far? And
Yeah, so when I got here, it was July of 2020, and so that was what we thought at the time was kind of the height of the pandemic. It subsequently got more severe, but at the time, everyone was not sure what was happening, and so we took classes out of the classroom and on a remote format for the summer. The students particularly wanted to get back into the classroom as soon as possible, because of the reasons I was outlining before. This interactive working together that takes place so seamlessly in an executive classroom. So we actually brought the students back into the live classroom in the fall semester. Now, of course, we did that in a way that was safe. I mean, students are masking in the classroom. We have everybody spatially distanced, all those types of things to keep everyone safe. And so far, it's worked quite well. One of the highlights of almost any executive MBA program is I think 98% of executive MBA programs, and we're no exception, do their global business course in a remote overseas location. And one of the things about UTA that not a lot of people, or at least I didn't know this when I came here, has a executive MBA program that's based in China as well.
Right.
And so what that does is it gives us an opportunity to really connect with high-powered business executives in China. And the students are always excited to go on that overseas experience. And this year, for reasons that I think are obvious to everyone at this point, we weren't able to do that.
Right.
Although there are times where I think we probably would have been safer
Right.
overseas. But people didn't want to be flying. And things.
Sure.
So the students were disappointed last year that they weren't able to do the overseas trip.
Sure.
And I was just on a conference call yesterday with colleagues from the Executive MBA Council where we were talking about just that.
Right.
You know, how people have been doing alternatives, and we actually did an alternative experience with a university in Chile, and we had MBA students and our executive MBA students working on some projects between the UTA and the University of Chile.
Right.
So that was an alternative that, while we didn't travel, still gave them a good sense of some international project work.
Right. Right.
I expect that now, as we get more and more people vaccinated and we're starting to see maybe the light at the end of the tunnel,
Sure.
people are going to be traveling again.
Sure.
Going forward.
Oh, that's great. So obviously, with all of these external circumstances, and it's felt like a continuous pivot, and we've had to be very flexible, obviously, in the fall semester. And now that we are embarking on the spring semester as it's launched, and you are settling into your role, this is a highly competitive market, obviously. And as you mentioned previously, UTA's focus has primarily been a regional kind of focus with our target audience. Being as competitive as it is, and you are viewing the program as it is built right now, where do you foresee some changes coming in the more immediate future, and then long-term wise, where do you see the program going?
Okay. It's interesting, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, I just read the other day that it's now forecast to become the third largest metropolitan area in the country after, the New York metropolitan area and then Los Angeles. And so that's a very interesting development. And I think as you see the population of Texas in general, and then this particular area grow, there's been a lot of interest in businesses that have been relocating to Texas, and also a lot of executive MBA programs as well. So there are a lot of opportunities for students to find that executive MBA program that fits their needs. One of the things that I thought was always interesting about the executive MBA program is because they're catered towards working professionals.
Sure.
They always said that they were weekend programs. So rather than students going full-time where you quit your job and you dedicate yourself full-time to getting your MBA, executive programs are weekend programs. The interesting thing about that was that it was Fridays and Saturdays. And I had asked the question early on in joining this industry, well, since when is Friday the weekend?
Right.
Now, a lot of people have the support of their organizations to come here, so their bosses give them Fridays off. But there are other people for whom that was a difficulty.
Right.
And so one of the first things that I wanted to look at doing was transition the program into a Saturday-only program. And we're going to, this fall, that is indeed what we're planning to do. So the program will, rather than meet, Friday afternoons and all day Saturdays, we're going to meet Saturday and probably 2 or 3 times Saturdays a month. It won't be every weekend. That would be burdensome, and people have things that they have to do with their family, and that's the key aspect of an executive MBA program, is that you have to find balance between your career, your studies, and your personal family responsibilities, right?
Right.
So we're trying to do that. And the first way I'm going to do that is we're going to transition from a Friday and Saturday traditional EMBA schedule to a Saturday only.
Right. That's exciting news, obviously. I think that, do you believe that could potentially open the market up beyond regional recruitment or?
Yeah, I think what that does is that enables people. So when I was at Thunderbird, that was a national program, and I had 38 of my 52 students in the class would fly in every second weekend. Now that was a Friday and Saturday only program, so there were people that specifically wanted that global education that that program wanted. Here, I think going Saturday only, it'll enable people for whom Friday afternoon commuting, even from across the Metroplex,
Sure.
would be difficult, or people that come from farther out, or people that might be interested in this program and wanted to fly in.
Right.
It will enable them to do that. They could fly in or drive in on Friday night
Sure.
and be ready for class on Saturday morning. So
Sure.
that would be more difficult when classes used to start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday.
Right.
So I think it will open the opportunity for, a broader, more, commuting students that
Sure.
want to join us here as well.
Sure. So one of the things over the years that I've been involved, my experience at UTA in general, and then working closer with the executive MBA program, which has been a huge pleasure and highlight of my time at this university, is noticing the wealth of knowledge and expertise that's given to students through the business coaches that are also involved on top of the faculty. Do you see that as a unique differentiator with our program, or do you see that, outside the classroom, the professors, providing instruction? Do you see any major benefit that you get from having those consultants as part of the benefits that we offer, to the students?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because as I had mentioned earlier, what executive MBA students are trying to do with this degree is they're trying to take their career to the next level, and that includes all of those business functions and business topics that you'll learn in the program. But it also means what am I going to look like as a leader? How am I going to have that executive persona? How am I going to build my career? How am I going to take my career to the next level? How am I going to, in doing that, learn how to mentor other people that maybe work with me, work for me, how I can take them to their next level? So we have a lot of different business coaches. We have one that is a kind of renowned expert in the use of LinkedIn and social selling for career development and things like that. We have resume coaches and career coaches. We have one coach who works with our students and offers seminars as part of our leadership development series, who is an etiquette expert and went to one of the well-known, renowned schools of etiquette. And so she provides seminars and hands-on experience in everything from networking to dining to to dressing professionally and all these types of things. And while a lot of people might think, oh yeah, I know all those things, when we did the dining one and we were supposed to set our own table and things like that, every single person got at least one thing wrong. So it was I think people really enjoyed that type of, in addition to learning your accounting and your finance and all that, putting that polish on yourself as a business professional.
Right.
So we offer that as well through the coaching program, and I'm integrating that into kind of a leadership development track within the program as well.
I think that's what's so interesting too. In my years, and I have firsthand experience as well when I was going through graduate school myself in a cohort format, I think some of the beauty that you find in the classroom with the students building that stronger rapport, as you've mentioned, in that cohort format. In the executive MBA especially, what I love to watch, and you always seem to see this, is you could have these C-suite executives in the classroom, and you could also have those students that seems to be at the cusp where they've they're at that breaking point going into upper level management, and that's why they were a strong candidate, but maybe even on the younger demographic or earlier in their career. Um, where I'm going here is the beauty of it is it seems like they are getting equally something out of one another. The difference of perspective. You mentioned just now, even in etiquette classes, everyone seems to get at least one thing wrong, so I think that is very indicative of we're constantly learning. We are never at a place where you could be, and I know this after 12 years of being in higher education, I'm not surprised at all when I'm sitting down across the table from a man or a woman who says, I'm 64 years old and I'm here to get my graduate degree because it's never too late. And that's a personal, achievement that I've always wanted to have under my belt. So there's not necessarily a question here, but it's an observation based on what I'm hearing here, that's made me think.
Well, I've actually had examples of that. So when I mentioned before the demographic for an executive MBA, that was an average, right? So I've had people, because it's an average, there were people that were older, there were people that were younger. I actually had a woman a couple of years ago in one of my programs who was in her early 60s. Now, for a lot of people think, well, at this point, I'm not going to have time to get the value out of it. But for her, it was something she'd always wanted to do. She owned her own business, and she really wanted to get her degree. So she was 62, I think, when she joined the program.
Yeah.
I had another student who was 28. And usually that's somewhat unique because at that age, you may not have the experience you wouldn't think to be able to contribute to the learning of others. And so before I tell this story about this particular student, that's something that's very important. That when in the executive classroom, the students bring a lot of experience, and so they're going to learn as much from each other as they learn from us.
So Joseph, you were speaking a little bit to the interaction that happens in the classroom, and some of your previous experience with some unique situations of students that may have come in for the obvious reasons of elevating their career, and they're at that place, but what's the unique things that maybe you've seen in the past when it comes to that interaction in the classroom, or some of these other folks that have come in for other reasons maybe?
Yes, I think we were talking about some of the students who were outliers on the upper age limit and the lower age limit. Like I said, the average ages for most executive MBA programs, I'd say, is 36 to 42, around there. But I was talking before about the student who was 62 when she joined the program. I also had a student who was 28. And when I first saw that, I was like, well, he'll probably be limited in his experience. But then what I was able to see was that he brought particular skill sets in mathematical modeling and things like that I thought, well, while he's probably earlier in his career, he brings skill sets that are going to really add value to the learning of others. And it was funny because he actually ended up graduating 4th in the class. And from the first day to the last day, they always referred to him as the kid, but everyone wanted him on their team.
Interesting, of course.
Because of the skill sets that he had. And I raised that because, and I've said this numerous times in this conversation, Michael, but it is really important. When I'm assessing candidates or applicants, the first question I'm going to have in my mind, and I'll ask them directly, is what do you contribute to the learning of others?
Interesting.
And that's a different perspective because most people, when they're applying for a program, they're thinking and this is because they don't know what the program's about yet, is they're always thinking about, well, my career, my education. What's this going to do for me? I want to get in, I want to get my degree, I want to get back to my career and advance and all those things. What really happens, though, within an executive MBA program is on the first day of class, you'll have, however many are in your class, walk in that day and they're strangers to each other. What I see as the director is I see future business partners and friends. And I always call the students' attention to that on the first day that, you don't know these people in here, but by the very shortly, they're going to be very valuable people in
So-
your life, both professional and as friendships, and so that's really important. Most students also like the fact when our program is 38 credits, it's about 2 semesters, or 4 semesters, excuse me, about a year and a half.
Sure.
And people like that. They say, oh, it's relatively quick.
Right.
And I have found, though, that at the end of the program, everyone, and this was not only here at UTA, but in the other programs I've left, everyone, when they were applicants, they wanted it to be fast.
Right.
When they got to the end of the program, they said invariably, and I can count on one hand the students that disagreed with this, but
Right.
everyone said, I wish it were longer.
Right.
And I know why that is, but I always ask them, well, why is that?
Sure.
And they'll tell you what they think you want to hear. They'll be like, well, I really like working hard, and the faculty's been great. I said,
Right.
well, what's the real reason?
Right.
And the real reason is invariably, I want to spend more time with my classmates, with these people.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, it's a joy for me as the director to see that transformation from strangers to friends to professional colleagues, and how that goes. And that's one of the reasons that keeps me engaged in this kind of work.
Right. One thing that I was absolutely energized by over the last several months of working with you was your focus on, even right now with being as unique as it is, with having to touch base with people on Zoom constantly, your focus on really engaging alums and wanting to find ways to better develop that relationship with alumni, in the future with benefits, to keep them involved and keep them, engaged with the program. So
Absolutely.
that's an exciting thing to see. I think that with UTA Fort Worth in general, that is definitely something that, on a personal note, we are focused heavily on and utilizing and capitalizing on our location, number one, but also utilizing us as a platform for reaching the population of UTA stakeholders in the Fort Worth community, including our alumni, of course.
Right.
So right now, as we are discussing this in early February, this is kind of a prime time, I think, where there might be those professionals out there that are thinking about, hey, maybe it's time for me to get back in the classroom. Maybe the executive MBA is the right fit for me. So what kind of next steps would you suggest, for someone that is looking to sometimes take the hardest step, which is the first one, right?
Right. So I'm in the process of locking down the schedule for the next cohort.
Mm-hmm.
It will start in August. So now, as we're in early February, the time is now to start collecting your information. If you're listening to this and you're interested in potentially learning more about the Executive MBA,
Right.
this is prime recruiting season, or it's the start of it. And in the spring, it gets really going.
Sure.
Because of the pandemic, we transitioned all of our information sessions
Mm-hmm.
onto Zoom in an online
Right.
format. That has a lot of benefits too, because you don't have to. You can do it at lunchtime.
Sure.
And we do some at lunch. What would be lunchtime,
Right.
traditional lunchtime period, and then we do some in the evenings.
Right.
So I think every second, beginning in a couple weeks,
Yeah.
we have, every second week we're doing an online
Information.
session where
Right.
where students can learn more about the program. And then, because everyone's situation is different,
Sure.
I also offer everyone the opportunity to meet with me one-on-one, either on telephone or Zoom.
Right.
Because a lot of times when you're in an information session, you're hearing about the nuts and bolts of the program design,
Sure.
and a lot of times people don't want to take time to share their own personal
Sure.
needs or concerns or
In a group format.
in a group format, right? So one of the things about Executive MBA is it's a very hands-on kind of concierge type
Sure.
feel, and we don't have, the applicant pool is not, as large as it is for the full-time MBA. Right?
Sure.
So you're able to spend a lot more one-on-one time with students when they're in the program and when they're applicants.
Right.
And as part of the application process too, I also do a final applicant interview where I have a one-on-one interview, usually about half an hour to an hour. And students really like that too, because then I get to learn about who they are, what they're looking for, so we can kind of cater the course and let the faculty know, the cohort that we've assembled this year, has these needs, these interests, and we can do that type of thing.
Right.
And everybody can then share their own personal goals, and we can get to know people. So when I come into the classroom on the first day, I always feel like a father looking at your children for the first time.
Right.
Because I've met everyone as an individual, but when you walk in the first day, it's the first time you see them as a cohort.
Right.
And so that's always very exciting.
Right.
I usually don't sleep the night before because you're all excited for doing that.
Well, I've always joked over the years with all of our cohorts here, including the executive MBA, that with the cohort model, seeing it firsthand from an administrative perspective, also as a student in the past for myself, I joke with them. I say on day one, everyone's kind of feeling each other out, trying to, okay, this is the first time we're in a room together.
Mm-hmm.
But then 2 weeks later, I could walk in the room and I can't get a word in edgewise because it's like they've known each other for years. And that is really everything about the benefit of the rapport building and just that relationship. Professionally, it opens doors. It's absolutely amazing what I've seen over the years. And I'm not joking when I tell the students, you may be asking me on day one what kind of employment opportunities or partnerships exist with the university, which absolutely we focus on. But many times they are so surprised at the end of it, and I know this, that so many doors are opening because of students providing those opportunities to one another.
Sure.
A lot of decision makers in the classroom, and I think that is one of the massive benefits of just a cohort model in general, but especially within the executive MBA program that I love to watch. I will say this, I can't thank you enough for giving all the information you've given us today, giving us insight to who you are, and your unique background. On a personal note, myself, and I speak on the rest of the UTA Fort Worth team and the College of Business, really, we're excited about where the direction of this program is going. We're delighted to have you as part of our university now. And as Joseph mentioned, if you are interested in the Executive MBA program and learning more about the program and starting in August, you can go to fortworth.uta.edu. And under our academics link, you will find Executive MBA. Click on that. We do have a series of information sessions that are going to be hosted, as you mentioned, online this semester. And it's a very streamlined application process, very open door policy, as Joseph's mentioned. So we can't thank you enough. And we're excited to see where the future goes for this program.
So thank you very much, Michael. It's been a joy talking to you.
All right, take care.